Today, when we look at the world around us, most of what we see is war, religion, and one gender. Is maleness, or being a male, a divine right to authority, to religion, and of politics? Can women heal the divisions between the Abrahamic traditions, heal the divisions in the world today? Should the women of faith be politically and socially active? What is the identity of a woman of faith? I believe that a woman of faith is an active woman who is always seeking to remove injustices from the society. Unfortunately, we see today that in many respects we have reached a point of stagnation. And let us see, for the political, social, and spiritual reform of the society, if we find hope in some examples from the past. We have the example of Lady Asiya, known as Vidya in the Jewish traditions. According to Islamic traditions, she was ripped apart for speaking against the injustices of the Pharaoh. In the Quran, she has been praised for her political and spiritual struggle, till this day making her a hope for women of all times. We also have the example of Lady Mary. She has been mentioned in the Quran 34 times. And she is not a Rasul, but it is most interesting to note that in Surah Anbiya, the surah on the prophets, from the verses 51 to 92, there is a host of messengers who have been mentioned. In that list is Maryam. And why, despite such a clear proof, Mary is not recognized as a prophet in her own right, is for the theologians to answer. How was it for Lady Maryam? She said, I wish I were dead and long forgotten. Lady Fatima, who we call a manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beauty in this world. What did she say? That the calamities that befell on me, had they fallen on days, they would have turned into dark nights. All of these women had to give spiritual tests, but they did not give in. But the gender-based nepotism in history means that we remember the tragic Mary, we remember the tragic Asiya, we remember the tragic Fatima, but in a very passive role. If we talk about Lady Fatima, the peace and blessings be upon her, and Lady Mary, peace and blessings be upon her, their children alone have a following of more than a couple of billion. They are the women who shape the contours of the world, yet they are seldom spoken about. Let us briefly, I know we are running short of time, but I'm lucky because Brother Yusuf is out of the room. So let us briefly look at how the life was for Bibi Fatima, Salamun Alaiha. We can look at Bibi Fatima as a Fatima, daughter of Prophet Muhammad. Or we can look at her as, according to her title, Al-Zahra, Fatima to Zahra. Zahra meaning the one who illuminates the heavens while being on earth. And if we dissect her from her mother's side, which is not very often done, she is the mother of Khadija. Khadija bint Khuwailid. As I said before, I'm not really used to talking in a graveyard. If you could please recite Salawat. Let's all wake up. We're talking about the ladies of the light. So, Khadija bint Khuwailid. Khuwailid held a lofty position. Her grandfather held a lofty position in the Quraysh. He was the chief patron of the Quraysh and the guardian of the Kaaba. Fatma's uncle, Hussain, mother's brother, was known as the just man of Arabia. He set up a league of justice to protect the corporate rights of the tradesmen. Her uncle, Barqa bin Nawfal, was a renowned Christian priest of his time who was outspoken against female infanticide. Fatma's mother, Khadija, was known as Malikatul Arab, the princess of Arabia, because she was the richest merchant of her time. And she is called the mother of her doors were always open for the orphans and for the needy, and she is known as the mother of Muslims because she starved herself to feed the Muslims when heavy sanctions were put on the Muslims. So it is only natural that with such background, Fatima's peace and blessings be upon her, started her political struggle at a very young age. You see that the tiny hands of Fatima, peace and blessings be upon her, were either bleeding or burnt in trying to defend her father. As a girl, you see, I'll be very short. As a girl, you see,
10 minutes because I knew you would take forever.
As a girl, you see,
We're glad she's not doing it early.
As a girl, you see that she selected a spouse who is the only man to be born in the Kaaba and whose sword shielded the Prophet from harm on at least 84 occasions. Her first battle, her first trip after marriage was the Battle of Ohud, where she is seen healing 64 wounds from her husband's body. Her husband was so charitable that he was known as the father of the orphan, and he used to give his own food to other people, also to the poor people, and he was only able to do so because this sublime benefactress herself was a sister to the poor. Now we see a trend. How active was Syeda Fatima as a daughter? How active was Syeda Fatima as a wife? In the 21st century Islam, do women have a role in politics? In the 21st century Islam, women may not have a role in politics. But in the Islam of Muhammad, woman was the brand ambassador of Islam. Check the verses of Mubahila and you will see how Syeda Fatima, peace and blessings be upon her, politically represented Islam. Just the way Ibrahim was an entire ummah in one person, in the same way Syeda Fatima was an entire ummah in her own self. According to Hazrat Aisha, she was a spiritual reflection of the Prophet. Nobody resembled the Prophet more than Syeda Fatima. And according to so many traditions, when the Prophet was outside Medina, both men and women came to her for advice, and she crowned the very word Faqiha. One of her titles is Ummul Ulum, mother of knowledge. She is also known as Kausar, not only because the lineage of the Prophet is from her, or the line of Sayyids is from her, but because of the abundance of values she inherited from her father and she passed on to her children. Her daughter, Sayyida Zainab, you see, with hands handcuffed, on a camel without a saddle, with 72 members of her family laying martyred in front of her. The army is against her, establishment is against her, the media is against her. And she shakes the entire nation with her sermons. She brings the tyrant down on his knees. And to this date, by bringing the tyrant down on his knees, Sayyida Zainab is the strongest voice of human rights and the strongest voice against oppression and human rights. And where did she learn this resilience from? She learned this resilience from the womb of Fatima. When we talk about Fatima, we are not talking about an Islamic figure. When we talk about Lady Mary, we are not talking about a woman from the Christian scriptures. When we talk about Lady Asiya, we are not talking about a woman from Judaism. All these women are heritage of humanity. Humanity takes pride in them. And they tell us that their times were far from perfect, but in their spiritual struggle lies a hope for us. What we must understand is that we all follow the same God, the colorless God, the odorless God, and a God that does not have agenda. One of the favorite names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me is the word Rahman. That is when Allah is the all-inclusive God who provides regardless of beliefs. Even if you don't believe in Him, He provides for you. And from that word Rahman comes the word Rahm, which means the womb of the female. So it is only natural that the women can heal divisions. Today, we as daughters of Asiya, daughters of Maryam, daughters of Fatima, it is for us to think that we can weep over the tragedies of Asiya Mary and Fatima, but can we be active like them? We are your mothers, we are your daughters, and we are your sisters. But above all, we are our own person. And we have come to this world for an important purpose, and that is to create peace within and peace without. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Rubab, for those inspiring words and for really embodying the empowerment of women within Islam in your example on how we do things. Thank you very much.